Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for Business Ego Juku. My name's Christy and I'm your host for today, so let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to Business Ego Juku. My name's Christy and I'm here with David Wagner.
Hello.
Hi David. David is a business communications specialist and NHK host. And this session, for session 4, we're going to be talking about connecting ideas. And this is a really important topic for me because oftentimes when I'm, coaching or helping people find solutions or even a new career path, connecting your ideas and things you've done in the past is a huge asset. And making sure that it's simple and easy to follow is often the more difficult part. So what are some tips that you have for making these transitions kind of between thoughts, decisions, or even business ideas?
Sure. So transitions are important. Yeah. And I think connecting ideas allows us to have smooth continuity in the conversation that we're having. What I learned, I've been living in Japan for almost 35 years, and I have a lot of experience working with Japanese in both languages. And what I learned a long time ago is that Japanese tend to make logical leaps without connecting ideas verbally. Mm-hmm. So in their head, it's very clear, but sometimes they're not connecting it with words. And there aren't a lot of clear transitions that I've seen many Japanese use strategically, but there are some great ones in English, and I think they're transferable into Japanese, and they're really, really simple. Let me just pull up a slide and show you what I'm talking about. So this slide shows two basic ideas about connecting ideas. And the point is that you connect them whenever you're moving from one idea to another or one topic to another, which seems obvious, but a lot of people don't do it. Mm-hmm. And then the transitions themselves come in three forms: words, phrases, and sentences. Mm-hmm. So words, single words, for example, first, next, lastly, are very common. Phrases, for example, in addition or another point is. These are used commonly in presentations. And then sentence transitions, which is my favorite and the one I use most of the time. For example, moving on, I would like to discuss the second issue, which is, why do I separate these out? Because I think the type of transition that you use is based upon the logical leap that you're making. So if you're making a presentation, for example, and you're showing a series of slides, you could probably switch from one to another very simply if it's the same theme with the first slide shows, the second slide discusses, the third slide highlights, right? But if you're connecting from one main strategic idea to a second one, which is completely different, I like to connect them with sentences, right? So for example, now that I've finished talking about the budget allocation for 2020, let me move on to marketing ideas for 2021. So you're putting together strategically in one sentence basically the concept of goodbye idea one, hello idea two. Now, again, this is really simple. It seems really obvious to most people, but a lot of people don't do it very clearly. And I think this is one of the things I want to highlight for Japanese who are using English in their leading meetings or their leading presentations, and they've got to make sure that they're telling a smooth story, because what this is all about is storytelling. That's what we do in business. We tell stories. And a good storyteller has a smooth continuity from the beginning until the end. That's the basic idea.
Yeah, no, and it makes a lot of sense too, what you're saying, in that like kind of the context of which you're delivering the message. So like you said, if it's a PowerPoint versus something like a topic that is more theme-based, right, where it's a really big business idea to another large business idea, and kind of knowing what it is that you're trying to communicate and applying the correct transitions that fit that type of knowledge transfer and I guess connection of ideas is really important.
I mean, one more thing linked to this is to make sure you have a variety of language. So in Japanese, the favorite transition that I always hear is sugi, next, right? Sugi wa, sugi wa, sugi wa. Well, you say it 3 times in a row and it's kind of boring, right? It doesn't sound very sophisticated. So the idea is to change your language all the time so that you're sophisticated all the time. So in English, you might say the next slide shows, then the next one could be, moving on to the next point, or the next one could be continuing on with another idea.
Right.
Variety, I think, is the spice of life here.
Also helps keep your audience kind of engaged so they don't feel like they're listening to the same thing over and over and over again.
That's right.
But also, what I find fascinating about what you were talking about was that when we switch topics, right, when we're going to connect something, I feel like a lot of times when I'm hearing somebody speak, it's really easy to say, okay, next we're going into this without wrapping up the previous kind of point. And so that leaves a gap sort of in the connecting of the two topics. So the transition from what I learned from you today is that there's definitely, it's a two-pronged thing. It's like making sure you wrap up the previous point and then introduce the next one, and that will help connecting ideas. Would you say that?
Well, what I like to tell people along the lines of what you're talking about is, if I'm in the audience, I should have no stress, right? So I shouldn't be struggling to say, well, did she finish that? What's she talking about? That should never happen in any business communication. And again, I think we're in the land of assumptions. In Japanese, we call it omoikomi, where people are making assumptions that if it's clear to you in your head, that the other person's definitely clear. And that's not always the case. So this is the power of words and the power of language. English is a really direct, clear language, and it's easy to do in English. Can you do it in Japanese? Absolutely. I do it all the time in Japanese. The only difference is the language, actually.
Right. So, all of you watching today, having this ability to know which words really like connect your ideas and thoughts, and knowing which words to use during certain transitions of your either speech, your presentation, or even like your business proposal to your boss or your manager. These are going to have huge impacts on the way that you present an idea and the clarity that the audience receives when you are presenting. So thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Christy. Look forward to working with you soon.
See you next week. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's session of Business Eigo Juku. We are going to have new videos every week, so be sure to check it out and stay tuned. See you next week. Bye.